"You're not allowed in here." Evan Clark's voice cracked across the sleek office lobby, sharp as the reflection off the glass walls, and Morgan Ellis paused mid-step, her black flats barely whispering against the polished concrete floor, the tablet in her hand slim and deliberate, carrying the weight of decades she'd built, unnoticed by everyone but the security cameras and a handful of early arriving staff. Her gray sweater soft, simple, but precise, like her plan, and she didn't flinch, didn't reply, her eyes sweeping the room calmly, catching the micro-expressions of disbelief and curiosity, of staff exchanging glances, whispers barely audible over the quiet hum of the HVAC. Morgan remembered the first time someone told her she didn't belong, 16 years ago, a conference room in Chicago, her name on a registration list, ignored, dismissed. The sting of being underestimated etched in her memory like a scar she wore with honor. Now, in this very office she owned, the irony was thick, almost tangible, but she stayed still, her presence measured, commanding without motion, allowing the tension to build. A young intern stepping back from the front desk, phone half raised, caught between respect and fear. Another assistant whispering, "Is she serious?" But Morgan's lips remained closed, only her gaze moving, silent, cutting through the assumptions like a scalpel. She noticed the petty gestures, the defensive postures, the way Evan's smirk faltered for a fraction of a second before he squared his shoulders and gestured toward the elevators. "You need to leave now," he said again, louder this time, trying to assert control, but the room had already changed, the eyes of the witnesses now more attentive, cameras ready, a subtle shift in the atmosphere. Morgan took a breath, slow, deliberate, letting it settle, her pulse steady. The quiet confidence of someone who had weathered countless storms in boardrooms and negotiations. And then, with the faintest lift of her head, she acknowledged the assistant recording on the side, a nod that was almost imperceptible, yet it carried the unspoken command of patience and poise. The room waiting, hanging on that stillness. Realizing something was different about her composure, about the way she occupied the space, the air thick with anticipation as she began to move again, slow, controlled, toward the central conference area. Each step a statement of authority, not loud, not aggressive, just undeniable. And the murmurs grew, people leaning closer, some stepping back, others reaching for their phones, the subtle crescendo of attention. Morgan's eyes catching Evan's again, steady, unflinching, the first crack in. His confident posture appearing. And in that quiet heartbeat, the world seemed to pause, the lobby itself holding its breath, waiting for the moment when the truth of who she was would pierce through the veil of assumptions and whispered doubts. A moment poised, ready, charged, and as she reached the center of the office, the tilt of her head and the calm of her gaze told everyone watching, without a word yet spoken, that something monumental was about to unfold, something that would leave them questioning not just authority, but their own judgment, the atmosphere crackling with expectation, and the screen of the intern's phone capturing every subtle motion, every glance, the slow realization dawning on every employee that this was more than a visitor, more than a dispute. This was the rightful owner of the space, Morgan Ellis, Black CEO, silent, composed, and utterly in control, the stage set for the reveal, leaving the viewers leaning forward, waiting for the moment that would change everything in the office forever. The office air was tense, every monitor flickering slightly as the morning sun hit the glass walls, and Morgan Ellis stood at the threshold of the main conference room, her movements deliberate and composed, the subtle click of her tablet on the polished floor echoing just enough to draw a glance from every employee nearby. Evan Clark attempting to regain control with a sharp gesture and a curt tone. "I need everyone to return to your stations." But the words fell flat, met with uncertainty and curiosity, the staff hesitating, their attention fully caught by the calm authority radiating from Morgan, and she simply raised her eyes to the ceiling for a moment. A silent exhale that seemed to settle the entire room, memories surfacing of times she had been underestimated in the past, the conferences ignored, the boardrooms dismissive, the subtle smirks and whispered doubts from colleagues who thought she did not belong. And now, decades later, those experiences folded into the present moment, giving her a stillness that carried weight far heavier than any raised voice. Evan stepping closer, adjusting his tie, trying to assert presence. This is company. Property, you cannot just stand here. But Morgan's gaze did not waver, only swept across the room, noticing the young assistant hovering near the doorway, phone in hand, ready to document, and another staff member whispering to a colleague, "Who is she really?" Which only drew more eyes, more awareness, a shift in the energy of the office as the subtle hum of expectation rose. Morgan slowly lifted her chin, letting her posture convey authority, the quiet kind that does not need amplification, the kind that commands attention without forcing it. The interns and junior staff caught between reverence and disbelief, some glancing toward their phones, ready to record, some simply holding their breath as the moment stretched. Evan's smirk faltering for a fraction of a second before he pressed his lips into a thin line. "I do not know who you think you are," he said, attempting to reclaim power. Yet every step he took seemed to accentuate the contrast between his uncertainty and Morgan's unwavering presence. Her memory reaching back to the first board meeting she had attended, the subtle dismissals, the assumptions made about her experience and competence, and how she had silently accumulated influence and knowledge over the years, now manifesting as a quiet force that filled the space. The hum of the office equipment and the distant chatter from the receptionist blending into the background as Morgan took another measured step forward, eyes locking on Evan once more, her calm, deliberate, exuding confidence and control as she tapped her tablet, and a soft notification sound echoed through the room, signaling the arrival of her assistant, a confirmation that all systems were ready. And in that instant, the staff collectively sensed a turning point, a moment where authority was about to shift, the interns and assistants straightening, some exchanging small, incredulous glances, the murmurs of "what is happening?" spreading softly across the office, the tension rising with every second. Yet Morgan remained poised, her breathing steady, the very air seeming to pulse with anticipation. And for those watching, the realization grew that this was more than a confrontation. It was a revelation, a poised calm ready to transform into decisive action. The room leaning forward as the subtle crescendo built, every eye drawn to Morgan Ellis, Black CO, whose silence spoke louder than any shouted command. The stage set for the moment when the truth of her authority would be recognized and the office would have no choice but to follow. Morgan Ellis remained perfectly still for a moment, her eyes sweeping the room again, noticing subtle shifts in posture, the way the junior staff unconsciously straightened their backs, the tension in the air vibrating like a low hum, the fluorescent lights reflecting off the polished surfaces, accentuating every anxious glance, every small gesture of disbelief. And she remembered a time when she had been 30 years old, sitting in a similar office in Boston, dismissed by colleagues because of the color of her skin and the quiet of her manner. Yet in those moments she had built resilience, patience, and strategic thinking, skills that now pulsed through her as she moved a single step forward, her hands relaxed at her sides, every inch of her body communicating quiet authority. Evan Clark shifting slightly, the confidence he had tried to project beginning to crack, as he glanced at the assistants and security personnel, searching for an ally, and finding only hesitant gazes and phones half raised, recording every subtle movement, every eye contact, every pause. Morgan tapped her tablet lightly, and the assistant's voice confirmed the protocol, the verification system engaging, digital confirmations flashing on nearby screens, and the staff slowly began to realize that the woman before them was not just calm, she was in control of the building, the data, the office, and the situation, the tension morphing into anticipation, a collective sense of witnessing something extraordinary settling over the employees. Morgan's gaze flicked to the young intern who had hesitated to record, and she nodded slightly, encouraging composure and observant attention rather than reactionary impulse. The subtle authority of her gesture amplifying the shift. Evan clearing his throat, trying again. "I am managing this office. I need cooperation." But Morgan's eyes met his directly, steady and unwavering, the hum of disbelief growing as the staff recognized that the previous assumption of trespassing was unfounded, the quiet moments stretching as Morgan took another deliberate step toward the center of the room, her posture commanding without force, her presence reshaping the office, the murmurs of realization spreading softly. Employees exchanging looks that asked silently, "Could we have been wrong?" And Morgan allowed a brief pause, letting the room absorb her calm. The weight of authority and experience evident in her demeanor, her mind recalling the countless boardrooms, the long hours, the silent victories where patience and intellect had carried the day, now manifesting in this moment as she prepared to fully assert her position, the digital confirmation blinking green on her tablet, the staff collectively holding their breath. Morgan's voice finally rising slightly, measured and firm. "All access to this office is verified under my credentials," and the silence deepened, the words settling into the room like a tangible presence. Evan's lips parting but no words coming out, the assistants shifting subtly, recording discreetly, some nodding in recognition, others exchanging incredulous glances, and Morgan's eyes moved across the office again, surveying every reaction, every flicker of surprise or awe, the subtle energy building toward the moment when she would complete the assertion of her authority. The office no longer a place of uncertainty, but a stage for the quiet demonstration of rightful power, the anticipation charged and palpable, the tension of disbelief, and the slow realization that Morgan Ellis, Black CEO, was in control, drawing the eyes and attention of everyone present, leaving the room suspended on the brink of recognition, ready for the next decisive move that would solidify her command and redefine the perception of authority in the office. Morgan Ellis took a steady breath, feeling the subtle shift in energy as every staff member now subtly reoriented their attention toward her. The office buzzing with a quiet tension that was both apprehension and anticipation. The soft click of her tablet echoing faintly as she set it on the conference table with precision, the sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows highlighting the calm determination in her expression. And she remembered the countless situations where her authority had been questioned, the subtle undermining in meetings, the hushed doubts whispered behind closed doors, each memory fueling the quiet strength that now radiated from her. Evan Clark attempting to maintain composure, gesturing toward the open office space with hands slightly trembling. "Please, follow the normal procedures." But the words lacked the conviction needed to hold the room, and Morgan's eyes scanned each face, reading uncertainty, hesitation, the dawning realization that the assumptions they had made were entirely misplaced. Her assistant's voice came softly through her earpiece, confirming that all access verifications were in place, the digital screens on nearby desks displaying green confirmations, and a subtle ripple passed through the observers as they processed the information, the hum of computer fans, the faint shuffle of papers, and the quiet tapping of phones created a rhythm that amplified the intensity of the moment. Morgan's lips curved slightly into a faint, controlled expression, not a smile but a signal of poised readiness. The young intern near the entrance leaning subtly to adjust the camera angle on her phone. The subtle energy of collective witnessing thickening in the air, Evan Clark's face showing the first cracks of doubt, the firm set of his jaw betraying a recognition of the undeniable presence before him. Morgan shifted her weight lightly, a single measured step forward, the polished floor reflecting her careful movements. The soft murmur of the office now mixed with the clicks of recording devices, the realization spreading that this was not an ordinary visitor, that the quiet authority she exhibited was backed by verified control over the office. Morgan's gaze settling momentarily on Evan, not with anger, but with the composed weight of certainty. The room collectively holding its breath as the slow crescendo of recognition built. Her voice breaking the silence, calm yet clear. "All systems and accesses are verified under my credentials, and I am fully authorized in this office." And in that single statement, the atmosphere shifted entirely. Employees leaning slightly forward, some nodding in disbelief, others exchanging glances that acknowledged the truth they had failed to see moments before. The hum of anticipation now charged with awareness. Morgan's posture unwavering, the presence commanding every movement. Deliberate, the subtle confidence of someone who had navigated challenges and emerged with authority flowing effortlessly through her, and the staff slowly absorbing the moment. The interns, assistants, and senior staff alike beginning to comprehend the shift, the quiet authority now unmistakably defining the room. leaving Evan standing with a mixture of astonishment and reluctant acknowledgment. Morgan Ellis, Black CEO, poised, composed, and quietly in command. The office transformed from a space of doubt and hesitation to one of recognition and unspoken respect, the stage fully set for the next step of her decisive control. Morgan Ellis paused in the center of the office, her presence a calm anchor as the murmurs of staff began to settle, each person processing the reality of her authority and the verification systems confirming her credentials, the sunlight catching the edges of her gray sweater and reflecting softly across the polished floor. The hum of computers and quiet tapping of phones creating a subtle rhythm that underscored the growing recognition of her control. Evan Clark shifting uneasily, glancing at monitors and colleagues alike, realizing the power dynamic had changed, while Morgan's eyes moved deliberately across the room, noting the smallest gestures of compliance, curiosity, and awe. The assistant near the doorway discreetly holding her phone to capture the moment without interrupting the quiet tension. A few of the junior staff exchanging quick glances, their expressions a mix of relief and admiration. Morgan's mind running through the events of the past 20 years. The countless meetings where her input had been dismissed, the subtle prejudices she had learned to read and navigate, the lessons that now culminated in this precise, measured command of space. And with another deliberate step forward, she tapped her tablet again, sending a signal that confirmed all systems were ready for the next stage. A subtle vibration in the air as the room collectively absorbed the weight of her authority, the security personnel adjusting their posture, the senior staff slowly nodding, the interns holding their breath, the atmosphere electric with anticipation yet tempered by Morgan's calm composure. And as she lifted her chin slightly, her gaze fixed on Evan, steady and unflinching, she allowed a faint, controlled exhale, the pause itself communicating more than words ever could, the realization settling in for everyone present that the quiet, deliberate actions of Morgan Ellis carried far more weight than any raised voice or frantic gesture. The office now holding a collective awareness of the inevitability of her decisions, the subtle shifts in posture and attention like a ripple moving through still water. Morgan's hands relaxed by her sides, her stance unwavering, her breathing steady, her eyes scanning for any final doubt or hesitation, and seeing none, the interns and assistants beginning to shift subtly, some exchanging incredulous looks, others slightly smiling in recognition, the hum of activity in the office now charged with understanding. Morgan's presence a calm force of authority, the verification confirmations on. Nearby screens blinking steadily. Evan Clark now fully grasping the magnitude of the situation, the staff collectively sensing that the moment of decision was imminent, and Morgan, Black CO, poised and composed, allowed the room to settle into an almost reverential silence, the anticipation building toward the moment she would fully assert her control, the subtle energy of quiet power filling the office, the stage set for a decisive shift in authority that would leave no doubt as to who commanded the space. Morgan Ellis shifted slightly, her movement deliberate and controlled, the subtle sound of her shoes against the polished floor echoing through the office as all eyes remained locked on her, the staff leaning in, a mixture of curiosity and dawning understanding painted on their faces, the fluorescent lights reflecting softly off the sleek surfaces, amplifying every expression and gesture. While Evan Clark's confident posture began to waver, his hand hovering near the console, as if searching for authority that no longer belonged to him. Morgan's gaze swept across the room once more, calm yet penetrating, noting each flicker of uncertainty, every twitch of hesitation, and in that quiet survey, the history of her career unfolded in memory. Meetings where she had been overlooked, whispers of doubt from colleagues, and the countless times she had turned patience into power, experience into silent influence. Now converging into the present as a force no one could ignore, the intern near the entrance adjusting the angle of her phone to capture the scene without interrupting the subtle tension, another assistant quietly exchanging a glance with a colleague. Realizing that the assumptions made moments ago were flawed, Morgan's hand brushed lightly against her tablet, a gentle tap sending a signal confirming that the access systems and verification protocols were fully operational. the screens around the office lighting up with green confirmations, a visual affirmation of her authority, the hum of electronics and faint tapping of keyboards forming a backdrop to the unfolding moment. Morgan allowed a slow, deliberate exhale, the sound almost imperceptible yet carrying weight, the staff collectively sensing the gravity and precision of her control. Evan Clark taking a tentative step backward, realizing the shift, the quiet authority in the room overpowering the residual tension. Morgan's eyes held his, steady and unwavering, projecting confidence that was neither loud nor aggressive, only undeniable. The murmurs of recognition spreading subtly among the employees, interns straightening their posture, some holding their phones to document, others simply absorbing the scene, and in this charged silence, Morgan's voice finally cut through, calm, composed, yet sharp. All verification is complete. My credentials are confirmed. This office operates under my authority, the statement resonating through the space, the room absorbing it in waves, the subtle vibrations of understanding passing from desk to desk, the atmosphere transforming from apprehension to acknowledgment, a quiet hum of realization building. Evan Clark's features reflecting astonishment and reluctant respect, the senior staff beginning to nod in acknowledgement, the interns exchanging whispers of awe, and Morgan's presence alone commanding the rhythm of the office, her posture unwavering, hands relaxed, eyes sweeping once more, taking in the collective recognition, the slow, deliberate shift of energy signaling that the control of the space had been fully established, the stage set for the next step in her demonstration of authority, the office alive with subtle energy, anticipation balanced with acknowledgement, and Morgan Ellis, Black CO, poised, composed, and undeniably in command, holding the attention, respect, and focus of everyone in the room, ready to proceed with the decisive actions that would complete the transformation of authority within the office. Morgan Ellis shifted her weight slightly, allowing the subtle movement to command attention without a single word, her gaze sweeping the office with the precision of someone who had mastered observation over decades, noting every flicker of doubt, every nervous glance exchanged between colleagues, the polished floors reflecting the morning light and the quiet determination radiating from her. Evan Clark's confident facade faltering as he realized that every assumption he had made was now exposed, the interns and assistants straightening instinctively, some adjusting phones to capture the moment, while others simply absorbed the presence of authority that needed no embellishment. Morgan's hand brushed lightly over her tablet, a deliberate motion that confirmed the engagement of verification systems, the screens across the office flickering green with authentication, a visual affirmation that the credentials and access were fully validated. The hum of the computers blending with the quiet shuffle of papers and the subtle whisper of the air conditioning to create a rhythm that heightened the tension in the room. Morgan exhaled slowly, a controlled release that seemed to expand the space around her, her calm aura contrasting sharply with the anxious energy of Evan and the staff who had underestimated her. And she remembered the first board meetings where she had been dismissed because of assumptions about her experience. Each slight and doubt folded into her memory, now coalescing into a quiet, undeniable strength that filled the office. She stepped forward with a measured pace, deliberate and unhurried, letting the weight of her presence settle over every desk and workstation. The interns exchanging subtle glances, the murmurs of recognition spreading through the staff, Evan shifting uneasily, trying to maintain composure, but the room now attuned to Morgan's authority, the realization dawning that this was not a moment of confrontation, but a demonstration of rightful control. Morgan's eyes met his directly, steady and unwavering, conveying clarity, confidence, and inevitability. The staff leaning slightly forward, observing the interplay, the young assistant at the doorway holding her phone steadily, capturing the quiet transformation of power, Morgan's lips parting just enough to allow her voice to carry, calm yet authoritative. All accesses are verified. All systems acknowledge my authority. This office operates under my control. And the words settled into the room with the weight of truth, a silence following that was neither uneasy nor tentative, but filled with comprehension and acknowledgement. Evan's expression reflecting astonishment, reluctant respect, and the subtle admission that the dynamic had irrevocably shifted. the senior staff nodding. Slowly, the interns exchanging astonished glances, the entire office vibrating with the understanding that the quiet, composed presence of Morgan Ellis had redefined the perception of power and authority in this space. Every detail, from the reflective floors to the faint hum of electronics, contributing to the atmosphere of measured control, anticipation balanced with respect. The room poised for the decisive steps she would take next to assert her command fully. Morgan Ellis, Black CEO. Composed, steady, and unquestionably in charge. Every eye in the office recognizing the transformation. The energy now wholly aligned with her presence. The stage set for the culmination of her quiet, yet definitive assertion of authority. Morgan Ellis felt the subtle shift in the room as recognition settled over the staff. The hum of electronics and faint tapping of keyboards merging with the quiet exhalations of realization. Her presence a calm but unyielding force that seemed to anchor the office in a way that nothing else could. Evan Clark's eyes flicked to the monitors, then to his colleagues. The growing understanding dawning on him that every assumption he had made had been wrong. The interns leaning slightly forward. Phones raised discreetly, capturing the precise movement of authority unfolding before them. While other staff members exchanged quick glances, some nodding ever so slightly, as if acknowledging the undeniable truth of Morgan's position. And in that stillness, she remembered the countless moments of being underestimated, the subtle biases, the whispered doubts, each memory coalescing into the quiet confidence radiating from her now, the polished floors reflecting her poised movements, the sunlight streaming across the office adding a soft warmth that highlighted every controlled gesture. Morgan's hand brushed gently over her tablet, a deliberate tap, sending confirmation through the verification system. The green indicators on the screens around the office signaling that her credentials were fully authenticated, the quiet rhythm of the room punctuated by the soft clicks and hums, all eyes drawn to her. Evan shifting slightly, a hint of tension evident in the tight set of his shoulders. Morgan's gaze sweeping the office once more, noting each flicker of hesitation, each subtle adjustment of posture, and then, with a slight lift of her chin, she allowed her eyes to meet Evan's directly, steady and unwavering, conveying calm authority and measured certainty. The murmurs among the staff quieting, replaced with a growing sense of awareness and acknowledgment, her voice finally rising, calm, clear, and deliberate. Verification complete. Access confirmed. This office is under my authority. The statement settling over the room like a tangible weight, the silence following thick with comprehension, the realization spreading slowly through Evan and the staff that the dynamic had irrevocably shifted, the interns nodding subtly, the senior staff exchanging glances that acknowledged the truth they had missed moments ago. The room collectively recognizing that Morgan Ellis's quiet composure and deliberate actions had redefined the energy and authority. Within the office, the subtle vibrations of acknowledgment moving through the space, the polished surfaces reflecting the calm intensity of the moment, the hum of understanding spreading like a soft current. Evan now standing with an expression of reluctant recognition, Morgan's posture unchanging, her hands relaxed, her presence commanding without force, the office alive with the quiet resonance of realized authority. Anticipation balanced with acknowledgment, every individual sensing the weight of the moment and the certainty of her control, the stage fully prepared for the next decisive actions she would take to assert complete command. And Morgan Ellis, Black CEO, poised, composed, and undeniably in charge, maintained the full attention and respect of everyone in the office. The atmosphere charged with anticipation, recognition, and the quiet power of rightful authority, ready to unfold into the next chapter of her demonstration of leadership. Morgan Ellis took a measured step forward, her posture perfectly balanced, the soft click of her shoes against the polished floor marking the rhythm of authority that now filled the office, every eye fixed on her, the subtle exhalation of the interns and junior staff blending with the low hum of the air conditioning and the quiet tapping of keyboards. Evan Clark shifting uneasily, attempting to regain composure, but the weight of recognition was settling in, each staff member aware that the assumptions they had held moments ago were being replaced by undeniable truth. Morgan's gaze swept across the room with calm precision, noting the smallest gestures of hesitation, the subtle nods, the exchanged glances, all silently. Acknowledging the change, and she recalled the countless instances where her presence had been dismissed, where decisions had been questioned, yet she had persisted quietly, strategically, building influence and authority over time. Each memory fueling the strength that now radiated through her stance. She tapped her tablet lightly, a deliberate motion confirming the activation of the verification system. Green lights appearing on screens around the office as proof of her verified credentials. The room absorbing this information with a mixture of awe and quiet understanding. The interns adjusting their phones discreetly, capturing every detail, while other staff members leaned forward slightly, absorbing the transformation in the dynamics of power. Evan Clark's shoulders tensed as he recognized the shift, his attempts at verbal control now muted against the undeniable presence of Morgan Ellis. She allowed a slow, controlled exhale, the sound almost imperceptible, yet carrying the gravity of experience and authority. The office collectively feeling the shift as the energy of recognition moved like a current through the space. Morgan's eyes returned to Evan, steady, unwavering, projecting calm and certainty, the subtle hum of anticipation now layered with respect, her lips parting just enough to allow her voice to carry smoothly, calm and deliberate. All access is confirmed. Every system acknowledges my authority. This office functions under my control, and the silence that followed held the weight of undeniable truth, the staff absorbing the implications, the interns nodding, the senior team exchanging glances, realization dawning that the quiet composure of Morgan Ellis had established not only presence but command, the polished floors reflecting her composed movements, the soft sunlight highlighting her measured gestures, the entire room charged with the acknowledgment of rightful authority, anticipation balanced with the understanding that the next steps would further solidify her control. Every detail, from the hum of computers to the subtle shifts in posture, contributing to the atmosphere of recognition and respect. Evan Clark, now fully aware that the dynamic had irrevocably shifted, the energy of the office entirely aligned with Morgan Ellis, Black CEO, poised, composed, and fully in command, ready to take the next decisive action that would leave no doubt about who held authority in the space. Morgan Ellis lifted her gaze, letting her eyes sweep across the office with measured intensity, the subtle weight of her presence filling the space, drawing every glance, every unspoken question into the gravity of the moment. Evan Clark standing a few feet away, attempting to maintain composure, yet the tension in his shoulders betrayed his uncertainty. The interns and junior staff observing with rapt attention, some shifting slightly, adjusting the angle of their phones, capturing the unfolding authority without disrupting the rhythm. The soft hum of computers and faint tapping of keyboards blending into the quiet anticipation that saturated the room. Morgan's hands rested lightly on her tablet, the deliberate pressure of her fingers confirming the activation of verification systems. Green lights on nearby monitors illuminating her credentials and access rights with precision. The subtle pulse of recognition spreading through the office as employees began to understand the full magnitude of her position. Morgan's mind recalling the countless instances of being underestimated, overlooked, and dismissed, each memory folding into the poise and confidence she now exhibited. A quiet but unyielding command that required no words, only presence. And yet, with the smallest lift of her chin, the interns and staff felt the unspoken message: observe, understand, and recognize authority. Evan Clark shifting slightly, a flicker of hesitation in his eyes, Morgan taking a slow step forward, deliberate and composed, every movement calculated, her gaze returning to him with unwavering clarity, the soft exhale she allowed carrying more weight than any raised voice. The room collectively sensing the shift, the air vibrating subtly with the acknowledgement of her control, the murmurs among the staff quieting as comprehension spread, the interns exchanging quick glances, some nodding imperceptibly, the senior staff adjusting their stance. The subtle acknowledgement of the undeniable reality taking root, Morgan's voice finally cutting through the tension, calm yet precise, carrying smoothly to every corner of the office. All systems verified. Full access confirmed. This office operates under my authority, the statement settling like a tangible presence in the space. the silence following filled with comprehension and the dawning realization that her control was complete, the polished floors reflecting the poise of her movements, the sunlight catching the edges of her posture, highlighting the measured precision of every gesture. Evan Clark now standing with a mixture of astonishment and reluctant recognition, Morgan's stance unwavering, the subtle currents of anticipation, respect, and acknowledgment circulating through the staff, the interns leaning slightly forward, phones still in hand, capturing the moment, the office now alive with the quiet resonance of authority fully asserted, every individual sensing the shift, the room poised for the next steps of action, and Morgan Ellis, Black CEO, composed, steady, and fully in command. Every eye in the office recognizing the transformation, the atmosphere charged with anticipation and acknowledgment, the energy aligned entirely with her presence, the stage prepared for the decisive next move that would solidify her control and leave no doubt of her authority. Morgan Ellis allowed a brief pause, letting the room absorb the weight of her presence, the staff collectively holding their breath, some leaning slightly forward, others glancing at their phones, capturing the precision of the moment without distraction, the sunlight streaming through the glass walls, casting soft reflections across the polished floor, highlighting the deliberate calm in her posture. Evan Clark shifting uneasily, his eyes flicking from monitor to monitor, realizing that the verification systems had confirmed what he had refused to acknowledge, the interns exchanging subtle glances, whispers of disbelief barely audible. Morgan's gaze sweeping the room with the measured focus of someone who had navigated countless boardrooms and meetings where her authority had been questioned and underestimated, each flicker of recognition among the staff reinforcing the quiet but undeniable power she held. She tapped her tablet again lightly, sending a signal to her assistant to initiate the next step, the subtle hum of the computers and the soft tapping of keyboards creating a rhythm that underscored the collective anticipation. Morgan's lips parted just enough to allow her voice to carry clearly and deliberately. All systems and accesses are fully verified. This office now operates under my command. The statement settling over the room with a tangible presence, the silence thick with understanding, the senior staff nodding subtly, the junior staff straightening instinctively, the interns leaning in, phones raised, capturing the decisive moment. Evan's posture stiffening as the realization of his misjudgment became undeniable, Morgan's eyes scanning the office once more, noting every gesture, every small adjustment, every flicker of surprise or acknowledgment, the quiet confidence in her stance radiating authority without a word, a testament to decades of careful preparation and silent resilience. The soft reflections of sunlight glinting off her gray sweater and the polished floor enhancing the impression of controlled power, the room alive with the subtle hum of awareness, each person sensing the shift in energy, the anticipation building, a collective acknowledgement that the office was now aligned with her authority. Morgan taking another measured step forward, her movement deliberate, her breathing steady, each motion reinforcing the calm command she exerted, the assistants exchanging small nods, the interns recording discreetly the subtle vibrations of comprehension moving through the office. Evan Clark now fully aware that the dynamic had irrevocably changed, the energy of the room aligned entirely with Morgan Ellis, Black CO, poised, composed, and fully in control, the stage set for the final confirmation of her authority and the next decisive actions that would leave no doubt of her command in the office, every eye fixed, every gesture absorbed. The atmosphere thick with anticipation and recognition of her unyielding presence. The office transformed into a space of acknowledgement, respect, and quiet, undeniable authority. Morgan Ellis allowed the room to settle for a heartbeat, the soft hum of electronics and quiet shifting of papers filling the space as every eye remained on her, the interns holding their phones steady, capturing each measured motion, the polished floor reflecting the sunlight that streamed through the glass walls, accentuating the calm authority in her posture. Evan Clark glancing at his colleagues, recognizing the shift in energy, his confident facade beginning to falter as the undeniable presence of Morgan Ellis became fully apparent. She took a deliberate step forward, each movement precise, controlled, reinforcing the subtle yet absolute command she held over the office, her hands resting lightly on the tablet, tapping once to activate the final verification, green lights confirming full access and authority flashing on monitors across the room. A visual affirmation that left no question about her position, the staff absorbing the weight of the moment, murmurs of realization, spreading quietly among the team. Morgan's gaze sweeping each face, noting the slightest changes in posture, every micro-expression signaling comprehension and acknowledgment, the energy in the room charged with anticipation and understanding, a calm power that required no raised voice, no dramatic gestures, simply presence and precision, her mind recalling years of being underestimated, dismissed. The quiet accumulation of influence and strategic insight now materializing in this controlled assertion of authority. Evan Clark shifting uneasily, his hand hovering near the console, aware that the office had realigned under Morgan's command. The interns exchanging subtle nods, senior staff adjusting subtly. The recognition of her control spreading like a quiet current through the room. Morgan's lips parted slightly, her voice carrying clearly and deliberately across the office. All systems confirmed. Access fully verified. This office is under my authority. The words settling like a tangible weight, a silence following that held comprehension and acknowledgement, every person absorbing the definitive nature of her statement, the polished floor reflecting her poised stance, the sunlight catching the edges of her gray sweater, highlighting the precise control and calm she exerted, the subtle vibrations of recognition moving through the staff. Evan now standing with astonishment and reluctant respect, the atmosphere transformed from tension to recognition. The office aligned entirely with Morgan Ellis, Black CO, poised, composed, and fully commanding the attention, focus, and acknowledgement of everyone present, anticipation and understanding interwoven, the stage perfectly set for the final moments that would consolidate her authority, the quiet energy in the room now fully responsive to her presence. Every detail of posture, gaze, and subtle motion reinforcing her decisive, measured command, leaving no doubt that Morgan Ellis held complete control of the space and the situation. The office transformed into a place of respect, recognition, and unspoken alignment with her authority, ready for the final confirmation of her leadership. Morgan Ellis allowed the subtle shift of energy to settle fully, the office now quiet with the weight of understanding. Every gaze following her with a mixture of respect and awe, the sunlight streaming through the windows reflecting softly off the polished floors and highlighting the precise calm in her posture. Evan Clark standing a few feet away, his confident demeanor replaced with tentative acknowledgement. The interns and junior staff holding their phones steady, capturing each measured motion, while the senior team exchanged quiet glances, recognizing the undeniable authority before them. Morgan took a deliberate step toward the main console, her hand lightly tapping the tablet to initiate the final protocol, green lights flashing across multiple monitors confirming her full control, the hum of the office equipment blending seamlessly with the soft whispers and gentle shuffles of realization, her gaze sweeping across every face, noting the subtle shifts in posture, the slight nods, the expressions of comprehension and acceptance, each movement reinforcing the undeniable presence she commanded. Morgan's lips parted slightly, her voice calm, clear, and deliberate as it carried through the room. All systems confirmed, every access verified, and this office operates entirely under my authority. The words settling like a tangible force across the space, the silence that followed filled with acknowledgement, the atmosphere charged with understanding, the staff absorbing the finality and decisiveness of her statement. Evan Clark's eyes flicking to monitors and colleagues, realizing that the dynamic had irrevocably shifted, Morgan allowing a slow, controlled exhale, her posture unchanging, her presence commanding without force, the office alive with the quiet resonance of recognition. Interns leaning forward slightly, recording the moment, senior staff nodding in subtle affirmation, the subtle vibrations of comprehension flowing through every corner. Morgan taking one final step toward the center of the office, her gaze steady, unwavering, eyes meeting each staff member's briefly, projecting calm authority and undeniable certainty, the polished floors reflecting her composed movements, the sunlight catching the edges of her gray sweater, enhancing the impression of quiet, absolute control. The energy in the room fully aligned with her presence. Anticipation now transformed into acknowledgment and respect, the stage perfectly set for the consolidation of authority. Every individual sensing the magnitude of her command. The office a space transformed from doubt and hesitation into recognition, understanding, and alignment. Morgan Ellis, Black CO, poised, composed, fully in command, her presence leaving no doubt about who held authority, the atmosphere charged with quiet power, respect, and the acknowledgment of her decisive, unwavering leadership, the moment stretching like a slow, deliberate affirmation that nothing in the office would be the same, every eye fixed on her, every subtle movement reinforcing the finality of her control, the space filled with a sense of completion, yet leaving a ripple of anticipation as to the next steps she would take to continue guiding the office with calm, undeniable authority.